Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Welcome to The Roll Call. I am John Glahn. I have with me Doug C. Brown, founder and growth partner for CEO Sales Strategies, also hosts a podcast, and many, many other exciting things that I can't wait to get into. All are accounted for. Let's start the roll call. How are we doing today, Doug?
I'm doing pretty good, John. Thanks for having me here. I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Well, I know your story. I know when we got to jam for a little bit previously, I can't wait to dig in because you have worked with a great deal of high profile clients, personalities, et cetera. And, you know, a good chunk of what you do, and you're going to elaborate significantly, but help companies find hidden profit and maximize growth. Mm-hmm. And so I can't wait to see how the heck we get there. So how did we get here, Doug? How'd you get here?
Well, I think my mother and father got together. I'm really not, but you know, I can tell you how I got here. But you know, I got here, started work at the age of 3, actually, with my dad in his business. Okay. And I swept floors. I loved it. You know, I thought I was a big kid now, so to speak, you know. Mm-hmm. And the adults would go to lunch, take me to lunch, prop me up on the bar stool, and I'd get my Coca-Cola, and they would talk business and do all that stuff. And I just got to absorb all of this, interesting business conversation and life's conversation. So, you know, that kind of went on for, I would say, 5 years of my life. And then as I started getting a little older, they taught us how to sell and write orders and things like that. And it was a wonderful journey. I do hear my mom was not very happy that they took me to the bar when I was 3 years old, but I'm really not sure how those conversations went between my parents. Yeah. But, you know, it kind of sparked that entrepreneurial journey for me, John. And, you know, I worked with my dad's company for 15 years until I went into the military, because in my family, there's 2 things you do. You get an education and you go in the military. It's that simple, right? Oh, yeah. You know, but I always had businesses on the side, even with my dad's business. And I had always trying these entrepreneurial things. I was able to persuade my older brothers, who were 6 years older than I was, you know, like go co-sign loans for me when I'm like 13, you know, that type of thing. Oh, okay. But, you know, I was always a kid who always had, you know, money because I always worked for it. And I always just had ideas. And I'm like, well, we can monetize this. And, you know, so that whole process from that period of time all the way through my dad's business, looking at his business, understanding, geez, we're paying, you know, tax on inventory every single year. Why are we carrying this much inventory? You know, these questions I would ask, all the way through now where I just entered into a business agreement with a partnership. And so it's our 38th business we've actually done over my lifetime. So, oh, wow. You know, and it's specifically focused in what I do, and it's a vertical within the trades business. You know, I find hidden revenue and margins, and you know, it's money that people or companies have already spent to actually, you know, acquire it, but they never acquired it. It just gets stuck in the business in form of different ways of, you know, underpricing, proposals never followed up on, you know, relationships that are sitting dormant, all kinds of different ways. And yeah, that's kind of how I got here. And then, you know, we obviously met, and you were kind enough to have me on your podcast. Yeah. I think I thank you for skipping over quite a bit, but we're not going to let you do that. We're going to go back. So one, just before I forget, what branch of the military? I was in the Army, in the United States Army. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your service. Well, thank you. Yeah. How did you find that as far as in your journey? You know, is it forgettable? Is it amazing? Is it? Yeah, it was. Where does that fit in your? I would say there was a little of both on all spectrums. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, I mean, coming from my family background, it was like my dad was in the, the Navy, and my grandfather was in the Army, and, and his grandfather, and so on and so on. Right.
Mhm.
So, my brothers, most of them went into the military. So it was kind of like, hey, I'm doing my, what I'm supposed to be doing. Then you get into the Army and you realize, oh, this is a little different than you think it was going to be.
Right.
But it had its moments of fun and joy, and it had its moments of, yeah, geez, should I be doing this? But I guess I stayed for 12 years, so it worked out okay for a while, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, it was good.
Well, then a triple thank you.
Excuse me.
Bless you. For for staying and serving. It was just, again, it just hit me because I was just with a client yesterday. We were doing their quarterly facilitation, and one member was in the military, right? And we're just equating the things gained from. He happened to be in a submarine for most of the time, so again, different conversation around what that looks like. But it's just, again, it's a major piece of one of us as a country, and some of us look back and kind of have wished at times that I wish I'd served at one point. I look back and say, man, did I do my but not everyone kind of looks at it that way, right? Mothers generally are a little different when they're thinking about their kids going, but it's also a big piece of, for this individual and many others, right? Teaching some discipline and seeing a whole different view of, of how to run life, and, again, life lessons and on down the yard.
Yeah. You definitely see a lot of, like, I think the first big understanding I had was, I'm no longer a kid from Massachusetts just going there. Like, when you grow up, you're kind of in your region, if you will. Yeah. But now I have people from all over the United States and even other parts of the world that we're interacting with. And you get this really understanding, like, okay, there's a lot of different things out there that you weren't exposed to or expected to, one of my gents that I was in the basic training with, his father was a guy who worked in the chalk mines in Georgia.
Oh,
I didn't even know they had chalk mines, right? I mean, it was like that's really, I didn't know where chalk came from. I know you wrote it on the blackboard, right? So you learn things about people, but you also learn about cultures and different, things that you just would never be exposed to in our tiny little world. And you do learn things about discipline. I mean, you learn things that, I learned that you can pretty much endure anything for 6 months, no matter how bad it is. And, that's taken a lot of good in business, because, not always business is just keeps going up. Sometimes it goes up, and sometimes it face plants, and sometimes it, goes up and down. And so I do reflect back on those times. And I had a lot of good fun, I mean, I met a lot of good people that just, we did some fun stuff together, and, we had some moments where we were all scared together too, right? Because when those, things happen, it's also creates a lot of awareness right in the moment.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, fortunately, I was a guy who came back, intact, and some of my friends, didn't make it back. But, that's just, it's in life. As I get older, I kind of reflect on it almost, John, as it's like, now that I'm older, and I have friends from high school who are no longer here or whatever, I kind of look back a little bit in some of the connecting the dots in the military type of thing, right? About, so yeah, there was a lot of good lessons.
Wow. Yeah. I think you can endure anything for 6 months is, that one got me noodling, right? Because it is, right? There's, and like I said, the highs are high in business, and the lows can be low, and they don't necessarily always go away overnight. And that's that, again, I keep coming back to in these conversations so many times of, everyone just sees the high side of entrepreneurship, right? They think they see the cars, or they see the glamour stories, or the fact that you said this is your 38th business. Like, holy buckets, like, That is amazing. Did all 38 hit?
Some hit way too hard. Like they put me down, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I remember early on in my life, I made one bad business decision and I ended up with $400 left in my pocket. And that was going from having a multi six-figure bank account to $400 in the pocket, like right away. And yeah, so, I was younger. I was certainly, I think I might've been maybe 27 or something. Right. But man, I had to go live back with my parents.
Let's keep going. What?
Well, and they didn't have a bedroom for me at the time, so I slept on the sofa, right? And then, during that period of time, my mother's father actually passed away. So then I was, I guess, fortunate enough to inherit his bedroom because he was no longer there, right? So I ended up going and using that bedroom. But I swear for about, I don't know, 2 months. This is why I say you can endure anything you for 6 months.
Yeah.
So this might have been 2 to 3 months. My mother, every single morning. So my mother's, got a lot of Italian in her, and then I never knew what her grandfather, the father who died, I knew wasn't my grandfather by DNA, if you will, and I've learned since that who it was through DNA tracing. So my mom is like almost 50-50 Italian, Ashkenazi, Jewish. We didn't grow up Jewish. I didn't even know I was Jewish descent for a long time, until 8 years ago, frankly. But every morning my mother would do the same thing. She'd come, she'd knock on the door, or she'd just open the door. And I remember walking in, she'd walk in and she'd look down at me. I was sleeping. And she'd go, by the time I have grandchildren by you, I'll be too old to even recognize them. And she'd walk out the door and then slam the door. And I was like, what a bad business decision that I made. And so, but I learned from that, I haven't made that decision, made that same mistake in business.
Yeah. Are you open to sharing a story?
Yeah. So there's numerous. See, here's the thing that I know about business. And I was taught this by people who have also had these issues. Like a lot of times in business, you fail more than you actually succeed. But it's one of those things that the successes overshadow the failures, and you're up, right? And that's really how like, I remember Mark Cuban watching Shark Tank one time. He said, you only have to get it right once.
Yeah.
And he's right, because if you failed 13, 14 times in something and then you sold your company for $2 billion, you're still in good shape.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I made this mistake a few times in my life, the same mistake. And I've learned not to do this anymore, which is you as an entrepreneur always think that every single idea that one has is amazing and everyone's going to want to buy it. And then if you go and create everything you need to and then launch it off, you find out, oh, that isn't working like I thought it was going to work. So I've done it twice in the software business where I've gone and I've invested all my money into software. We created this product and it just made sense that people would want it. Then you launch it and you find out, oh, no, they don't want it. Or, oh, no, it's not what they want. Then you got to go back and change the software product, which costs you twice as much as if you had just got it right the first time, right?
Right.
So it was one of those situations where I plunged head on into a market that I knew nothing about, that I thought, hey, I've had success in other businesses. How hard can this be? And then when I got involved in it, it was like, well, this is 18 times harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
but in the meantime, I had spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars getting into the market, right? And so little to no sales coming in, high overhead going out, money in, money out equals, and it was a lot. And so, I had to wrap that one up. But I did take that lesson. And in the next business, it took me about 4.5 months to actually get the next business up and running. But we did turn that into a 7-figure business. I say I in this case, did turn that one into a 7-figure business. So, I did come back, if
Yeah.
you will, from the face plant of, reality. But, I mean, that's happened several times. I always try to put things in contrast, John, because like I remember one time in a business, we were losing $20,000 a week in the business, which is $1 million a year if you run it out, right?
That starts to,
Yeah, it starts to grate on you after a little while. You're trying to get things going and moving. And it's just like 20,000, man, in a month, I could have bought a luxury car back then, that type of thing. And it's like, you see somebody driving back then a Mercedes was like, 35 grand or whatever. And you see them driving a brand new Mercedes and you're like, oh, geez, I just bought one of those, but I never can drive it. Right. So kind of get in that mode. But then I remember Ted Turner, thank you. I'm sorry, but thank you. And I say I'm sorry because I was watching Ted Turner on television, TNT TV, for people who don't know who he is. He was married for a period of time to very famous, actress, and Jane Fonda. And during that time, the announcer that was interviewing said, well, Ted, how do you do this? You're losing $20 million a day type thing. And I was like, what did he just say? $20 million. Did I hear right? It didn't matter. A day, a week, a month. It really didn't matter. Right. And I was like, oh, and he was so calm. Ted was calm. He was calm as could be. I'm like, why am I freaking out over 20,000 a week when he's losing 20 million? Right. and if he can come back from that, I certainly can come back from the 20,000. And we did. Right. It's just, we tend to get ourselves in this place where we're just like losing our minds and we're making a sale to ourselves. And there's always two parts of a sale. There's the business return on investment. Like, how do I turn 20,000 back into 20,000 profit, if you will? But then there's that personal return on investment. And that's the part where we actually hose ourselves. When we start selling us, I'm like, oh, this isn't working. It's not going to work that well. Or you put the bravado face on for the the employees or the whoever in business meeting you go to, you're in a networking thing. But it's in those quiet times where you're thinking by yourself, we're screwed, right? But that's what I've learned not to do anymore, because what I learned is, and it's really physics when it comes down to quantum physics, is our bodies send off vibrations. And when in those quiet times, even if we're out there going, I can make this happen, that quiet time undoes all of that if we're focused on the negative. So I've learned not to do that anymore. And it's been very, very helpful to me.
Wow. I will come back to that. I want to go back to, when you said, when you go head first into building something.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes that happens and it works, and many times it doesn't. So the lesson here would be what?
Start, get it functional, make some money, then make it better.
Minimally viable, right?
And then exactly. And then make it better. Like I plunged headhole into, I think we talked before, I was in the music business, right? And so I plunged headlong into the music business as a DJ. I was a professional DJ. I was very good at being a DJ. I was one of the top DJs in, I would say, probably all of New England. And I was well paid. But I went out originally because, and I had experience in that industry because I was selling music equipment prior to musicians, and some very famous musicians too, like Aerosmith, the Eagles, Billy Joel's band, Extreme, Boston, blah, blah, Jake Isles, like it was like the greatest job I ever had in my life. It really was. And, I knew the music business, so I was setting up DJs and I was noticing they were making all this money part-time as a DJ. And I'm like, why don't I just do that? So then I'm like, okay, so I go out and I spend like $15,000 on equipment. again, before I knew this rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
$15,000 in equipment. I go buy Bose speakers. The 802s were the highest thing of the day. And I'm like, I'm going to be amazing quality. Bought all this lighting, all this stuff. And I go out and I'm doing these jobs and the business is taking off. I'm like getting lots of work. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I made it. But then I'm at this very fancy hotel and I noticed the guy walks in with this set of speakers. And back then it was PV speakers, and PV was kind of known as the lowest end of speakers that you could buy at that point. And I get talking with him and we were both doing the same type of event. It was a wedding. And I said to him, I said, well, how you doing? He goes, great. I'm getting paid like this. And he told me, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting paid more than I am for this particular wedding. Right. And so I started digging in. I'm like, what about your equipment and this and that? And he goes, they don't care. They don't even know any better. Right? Yeah. All they want to do is dance and drink and dance and drink. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy spent like $4,000. I spent $15,000. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I had just taken time, got functional, rented some equipment, brought it to the thing, got to know the industry a little bit, then made some money, made it better. Then, I don't need these. I could have gone a middle level. I did, and actually ended up selling the Bose because the Bose needed active circuitry, and that was kind of messing up with the hotel's electrical system at times. So I ended up going to JBL speakers, which were half the price of Bose, and people loved it. Right. So, and I built a very successful, 6-figure DJ business, doing that. And, and I got a lot of relationships out of it for my other businesses because I was doing corporations. I was doing McDonald's Christmas parties, Fisher Scientific, all these big companies. So, I think it's just one of those things that if people are going to start a business or they're in business and they want to run a new initiative, just take those 4 steps, get it started, get it functional. You're going to get lots of feedback from people. Then you'll know what to adjust, make some money. If you can't sell it, stop putting money into it, because if you can't sell it, no matter how big your dream is, it's, if you keep putting money and money and money and money and money and no one's buying it, which I see entrepreneurs do all the time. Yes. It's a recipe for death in the business.
Yeah. I see it, I hear it in a different way. And I'm going to butcher the phrase. I have a friend that's like, it's better to just get started. Perfection isn't something to be started. You don't start with perfection. And so most people, they're either waiting so long to get started on something, to make that move, to jump into something, that they miss the opportunity, or they're trying to build out this, again, over-engineer, over-create a widget, and then try to get to the market, like you said, investing in R&D, all these other things before they even tested it in the marketplace, before even actually checking in on who might like this thing.
Yeah.
Or you've got a group that loves it, but they can't handle the price point. Right? If you don't do that work up to that point, you got a whole expensive life lesson, is what I call them.
And and folks, those of you who listen to this, please heed what John just said and what I'm saying, please, because the reality is it doesn't matter. I mean, you can look at, let's look at Coca-Cola. They rolled out the new Coke, right? Man, that almost created riots. I mean, that was just like people, just sales plummeted on, right? And people were angry. And all it took was just a little bit of test this here type thing, right? And I don't know if Coca-Cola did it or didn't. I wasn't involved in that. But I mean, there's many, many, many companies, .com companies that grew up during the .com area that just went bust because they were so heavily cash, infused, but they couldn't sell anything.
Right.
And so, it's okay. But going back to your, the inaction is the number one killer. Perfection is the second killer to that. As you were saying, a lot of times perfection will actually create inaction.
Yeah.
Or, you know, my wife, when I first met her, she was my client actually. And she won't, honey, if you listen to this, don't kill me, but not dead, but you know, verbally. But you know, she tells this story publicly, so I think I can tell it. When I first met her, she was amazing in what she was doing. She had she able to connect the body, mind, and she was working with older adults and these people who were like, oh, I got aches and pains and this type of thing. Or I can't walk really well. I mean, just within literally a month, they were feeling better and they were walking around, and some were actually running again. And it was an amazing business. And she also had a math business. And anyway, she wanted to grow this performance way business. And so when I first met her and she became my client, I was like, okay, well, tell me what you're doing. And she told me, and I go, this is amazing. You know, you're creating all this biomechanics and quantum physics and all this methodology together, you know, smart gal, which she is. Mm-hmm. And then I said, well, how many, you know, did you sell? And she's like, well, I haven't tried to sell it yet. And I said, well, how long have you been creating this? And she said, 2 years. I said to her, now she did have a very successful math tutoring business, right? They had multiple people. And so she was supporting herself, and she said, well, what do you think I ought to do? I said, our coaching session's over. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, I want you to go sell it. Yeah. And she said, well, how do I sell it? And I said, here's the script, you know, just talked it through, got it all written down. Yep. Go sell it. Don't call me back until you actually find somebody to buy your product. And she told me I scared her at that moment because she wasn't sure what to do. And I said, just go sell it. Anyway, she called me back, and about 5 days, 6 days later, she said, I sold some. So we set another appointment. This was like maybe 7-8 days from the time we had our first session. And I said to her, I said, how'd you do? She goes, well, I sold some. And I said, great. How many? She goes, 36. And I said, really? What did you sell it for? And she said, the number we agreed on, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, if you keep up this pace, you're going to outpace your math business. She goes, yes, I will. Yeah. And so then she said to me, she said, I said, well, you know, she goes, what do I do next? And I said, well, when did you set the class for? And she said, 2 weeks. And I said, finish your program.
Yeah, here you go.
And she did. And here's the crazy part of that story. About 80% of the 36 people renewed for a second term and a third term, and they were there a year later. Right. So they were just paying monthly. And so she did outpace because she added more people. And then we went to the corporate field, and corporations were sending their people. And she made more money in that business in its first year than she did in her math business 3 years combined.
Oh, wow.
And it was all because of the perfection complex to make it, you know, to your point, John, that, you know, please don't do that, folks. If nothing else you get out of this conversation, please that, right? Because that one's cost me millions of dollars that I didn't need to spend out.
Yeah. Just take some action, right? Don't sit on the sidelines.
So one of my mentors, John, was a gentleman named Russ Whitney. And Russ, if you hear this, thank you. Russ owned 38% of a company called Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of people understand that brand.
Yep.
And he also owned like $1 billion worth of companies. And Russ told me one day, we were building a company, and he told me, Doug, we're going to get this to $500,000. We're starting it up. We're going to get together at $500,000, you and everybody in the company, and we're going to decide whether we keep this company or pull the plug. And I was like, Russ, I just want to understand you're thinking, like, we're going to build this thing to $500,000, and then we're going to get together and decide whether we keep it or not. And he said, yes. And I said, it's an interesting thing. I said, why? Because if we get it to $500,000 in a short period of time, that tells us we have legs. He goes, it tells us if we have legs, but it also tells us whether or not we can scale it past $5 million.
Oh, wow.
And we don't want to do anything under $5 million.
Wow.
right?
Yeah, but instead of betting on it being 5 million out of the gates, it gives
right.
you the checkpoint.
And he told me back in all his companies, they used to start divisions, build them up, get them to $500,000, and then get together and decide whether or not we should go forward or not. And so I've adopted that in my life because it's a really great strategy. We did get that company, by the way, to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we got it. It grew fast. We got it to $1 million, but we determined we couldn't get it to 5.
Wow.
And so we ended the company. And so what I want people to get out of that is, depending on what you're building your company for, you can look at it as, I'm building this for a personal lifetime pleasure, right? In that case, as long as you're making money, you keep it. If you're building it as a personal lifetime pleasure, but it's a bad relationship, you get rid of it. If you're building it without that personal thing in touch, that's what he was doing. He cared about the business, but he cared more about growing it to a place where we can employ a lot of people versus just a few people. So it just depends on where you're going, but it's okay to stop the business. If the business isn't running in the direction, it's the universe telling you stop the business and go in a different direction.
Yeah. Back to the vibrations and whatnot. And I do want to go back there, but I also I don't want to do a disservice, because I think we could go through like every one of your businesses. And obviously you clearly have the experience and, and many, many lessons to teach folks. I don't want to lose sight of what you're doing today.
Yeah.
And how you're helping clients today, because you're turning all that experience into something today. So let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. I thank you. Here's what I recognized in most companies and most people trying to grow something. They're always looking at, how do I sell more revenue? Mm-hmm. Like, how do I get there? Right. And it's like, that's one component of a successful business. You got to have sales. You got to grow revenue, but they make that as their major metric.
Right.
And so, I was talking to a company one time, and I can't mention the name because everybody would know it. But they were a $1 billion plus corporation. And I was talking to them. They're like, we want to grow our revenue. We want to grow our sales. So I'm like, okay, well, tell me the numbers. They told me what they were doing on the top line. And I said, well, what are we doing? What's your EBITDA? What's your operational cash flow? And they kept saying the same thing over. We're $1 billion plus company. Right. And I'm like, I feel like I'm no one's hearing what I'm asking. Let me spell this out. What's your profit? Like, what are you making off this $1 billion? And the room went silent because they knew I wasn't going to let it go. And they said, we're losing $72 million, right? I said, a year, a quarter, a month, what are we doing? Because Ted Turner was losing 20 million, right?
Yeah, right.
So they said, no, it's 72 million a year. I said, so what are we selling at a loss? Mm-hmm. And the room got quiet. Like, we aren't, so we looked through all the product sets, right? And it's like, listen, you're selling this stuff at a loss, this stuff at a gain. Like, we either have to be able to get this pricing up to, or lower the cost of acquisition to make this profitable, or you're just essentially going to sell yourself out of business. Mm-hmm. Which IndyMac Bank, whoever did that one, that was a client of mine originally. Yeah. We had that conversation and they ended up going out of business. I mean, think about it, a very large bank, right?
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether you're $1 billion company or a small company. You got to decide why you're building the company. Firstly, like software companies, they always go, well, we run EBITDA 0. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's cool because you're expecting somebody to buy you, but what if they don't buy you? Right?
All right. Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Run for 0 forever or negative forever? No, you run out of money, right? So how do we make it profitable? And so I help them focus on first the monies that they have sitting in their company that they've already paid for, but they haven't moved it to the bank. And I'm not just talking financials. I'm talking about things that are stuck, like the handoff between sales and operations, or underpricing, or as I was saying earlier, lack of follow-up or proposals that have been sitting there, or dormant clients that have been sitting there, a lack of referrals that are going on in the company, on that side, or key person risk. They have, Jerry, who's been there for 20 years, and Jerry's the only one who knows anything. And if Jerry got sick, or God forbid something happened to Jerry, like no one in the company would know what to do. And then they're losing money, and so, all these different, we have 21 different areas we look at, and there's usually 5 to 6 different subcategories within the area. And so we run all this data and we show them where the money's hiding. It's hiding, looking at them, laughing under the covers, going, ha ha, you can't find me. And so we find that money, and then I help them go get it. I'll give you an example. I just did one with a plumbing company, and they weren't a big company, only, I shouldn't say only, $772,000. We found $226,000 in EBITDA sitting in that business.
Oh.
Right. And we went back in the first 3 weeks and we helped them recover $40,000 of that money just in marketing overspend that was going on, just in, some technology that they weren't utilizing to its capacity. And within 6 weeks, we've got back $63,000, started increasing their sales. Well, they were at a zero EBITDA. Now their EBITDA is going up, not just from reclaim, but from helping, handoffs that were getting stuck in the company. This was crazy. They were having clients abandoned because they couldn't deliver their service for 8 weeks. They already took the money in. They had to refund the money out. So it's like, so that one we went after very quickly, and $226,000 on $772,000 is a really big amount of margin.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, we're essentially talking, 28, 30%, it's a margin. And so just to reclaim that back, here's what I want people to get. If we're reclaiming something like that, if you're at 13% margin on your company, like EBITDA on your company, and we reclaim back $100,000, that's equivalent to you selling $760,000 a year. But that's every year. Now you got it back. So you've upped your business by 760 every single year. Now, if we
doubled their business.
Exactly. If we take that 100,000, reclaim it, but we also go and we increase the business by 760,000, let's say, as a number, but the EBITDA now has doubled. It's not just you get double the cash flow from the new money, which you do, but you also double the cash flow from the other existing, say, $1 million that was sitting there as well. And so now you've added 130,000 on the front end, and now you've added, the other EBITDA on the back end. And so now you end up with a bunch of operating cash. And now you can scale that, right? So, and that's what we do. We help companies do this because going back and looking at what's missing, we find things that we can monetize going forward on new revenue streams. I just did this. It blew my mind, John. A software company, they're doing like $38 million a year. In 2 conversations, we found $5 million sitting there.
Wow. And
it was like, they were like pin drops and rightfully so. And we've already started going back. I mean, this has been like not even a week. And in the first few days, we were able to gain back. It wasn't a lot of money. It was like $14,000, but it's starting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it could be big companies. I've worked with Intuit, and turned that around for similar reasons. They didn't have their ideal right fit buyer dialed in. You would think Intuit had it dialed in, but so I love doing this because it really makes a difference in people's lives.
Well, you nailed it, right? Because I mean, even, and I don't even want to step into the shoes of the one, right? Someone it's not a large company, right? You said they're under $1 million. The one you were explaining where they're zero EBITDA. the non-financial burden of owning and running a business like that. Not only are most small business owners just employees, just no one tells them what to do. They're just employees, right? They're working twice as hard as everybody else for making the same amount of money or less. When you're running a business and getting nothing out of it, there's a toll that's taken on you as a human. And who knows how much longer, there's a reason obviously they came to you, but who knows how much longer that person goes on. How many suicides happen because of stuff like that, right? Because one bad thing happens, that zero turns into a couple $100,000 that they can't absorb, again, like you. So, again, now I'm sure the vitality of that, just let alone the owner, but then the rest of the business and everything else that comes from that. And then now they're going to go scale. They're going to go hire more people and they're going to employ more people. And, that's the juice of entrepreneurism.
I have, one of my two of my recent clients, I'm really good at helping companies do this, but I'm also good at helping individuals do this. It's not being braggadocious. It's just, it is, right? So one of the gentlemen, both of these gentlemen were in a place where their marriage was rocked, like really rocked to the point where they're like, I think it's going to end. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of them was fighting with his wife because he wanted to buy a house and she wanted to not buy the house right there. She wanted to find the perfect spot. And, inflation was going up on the housing and he's like recognizing that it's creating more stress because he was making money, but he wasn't making the money he wanted to make. And so anyways, we got together, we did this and we literally found and moved forward on, and he went from, went from 700,000 to 910,000 in his business in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we worked on also the human triggers that were going on too. Mm-hmm. Well, I love this story because I didn't know the second part of the story and just till about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So this was maybe 7 months ago. We started working on that. And, one day he gets on the call and he goes, "We're going to buy a house." I said, "Why?" He goes, "We decided we're going to stay right here. This place we're going, we're going to buy this house." I said, "Well, what about the inflation?" He goes, "I don't care about the inflation anymore." And I'm like, wait a minute. This was a big conversation. Like, that extra $2,000 a month. Oh, that's right. You added 200 grand into your life. So you got 100 months covered, right? And he goes, "Shut up." Right.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, but what he didn't tell me, which I just found out 2 months ago, was in the interim of reconstituting the old business and growing it. He got it over $1 million. And they started another division of importing with one of his previous clients. And they grew that business and set in less than 6 months to $2 million on top of the $1 million he'd already built.
Oh, wow.
And then he told me this year in 2026, they expect to break somewhere between 5 and 10 million on that business. And I'm like, whoa. And so, my other client, the same thing. He was a consultant at the time, and he added $530,000 to his business in 5 months. And I talked to him just recently, and he said, "You know what the biggest difference is? I can now take my kids to the movie theater or go on vacation and not worry about it.
Oh.
I can now do family stuff, and my wife and I have stopped fighting." Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. There's a big impact that comes out of this. And that's what drives me. I'm older now, John, as we were talking about earlier. Like I'm older, right? It's like, I'm still, my wife has me on a 42 and a half year rolling contract. So I still have at least 42 and a half years to go. I'll be like 100 and whatever.
Yeah.
But where I've kind of learned coming full circle of getting here, now at 64, which is, most of the things I worried about, my 20s, 30s, and 40s, were stupid. They were dumb. It was like I stressed myself out over whatever, right? And the answers were there, but I was so caught up in my ego that I had to protect my identity, or, whatever it was back then, that if I had have just had somebody like me in their life at that moment, and I have had those key mentors in my life, it just makes it so much easier. And we're now talking about math. Somebody said to me the other day, men can lie, women can lie, he, she, they can lie. But math, it doesn't lie unless it's derived by a human who's lying.
Yeah, right. Who's putting the wrong stuff in, right?
And so we base everything on math, metrics and math. And you can clearly see the numbers. It's like if for all those of you who ever get in an argument with somebody, I did this, so this is fun. My wife and I had a disagreement. I couldn't really understand what she was disagreeing about, and she couldn't understand what I was disagreeing about.
Yeah.
So we recorded the conversation and we dropped it into ChatGPT.
I love it.
And we said, no bias, no nothing, no anything. Just analyze this conversation and tell us what this conversation is about, and just be brutally truthful. And it did. And then we're like, okay, let's go to Gemini. We did the same thing. And bing, it brought it up. And then I'm like, summarize this into 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs and let us take a look. And it did. And we took a look at that. And she and I looked at each other like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that I did this. I didn't realize I was doing this. And she said the same thing to me. And we were hugging each other within, a minute. And it was like, so objective truth in your business or your life is really important.
Yeah. So one, thanks for sharing that. Sure. I'm not sure if I should try that or not. I think I probably should. So the math, you said, hey, here's the math. And again, because your specific tool that helps you help clients.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's easy to say you could drop you in anywhere because you have all of your experience to help. But how do you get it there? How do you make the numbers get it there?
Oh, so we look at all their data sources and we import their data sources. So their financials, for example, like from the business, right? So we get their QuickBooks or FreshBooks or whatever. We look at the CRM data. We look at the operational data, and then we have our own, I would call intelligence surveys that we put forth anonymously to the employee base, and they can say whatever they want, right?
Right.
We take all of that data and then we run it against our EBITDA drivers that we work with the CEO or the solo company or whoever it is, and we take all of this data, and we built our own software to do this, and we crunch all this data and we put out a growth map for them. And in that growth map, what it does is it clearly shows what is working, what is not working. And we take that map and we go, do you want to create a plan out of this thing? And if they go, yeah, we go, here's your plan. So over the next 12 months, this is how we're going to go back and get this hidden numbers, these hidden value, and how we're going to then also expand upon what you've already built to increase the revenues, if that's what you want, to increase the margins on an ongoing basis. And then, so that's the plan. And then just like, any good doctor, if you will, you check in on a quarterly basis and redo it again. And you check your blood work and you check this and you check that, and we do it again. And then that might adjust the plan. And we just keep following that process, because it's no longer about, I think this is going to possibly work, or, that type of thing. It will clearly show you. Like I just ran one yesterday. The gentleman is spending twice the marketing money he spent over the previous quarter of the same year and getting half the conversions. Then I noticed a big fat consulting fee in that number as well. And I'm like, the consultant is driving them to do this. So now we're going to have a conversation tomorrow to figure out exactly why this is happening. Is this like the path you should keep running down enthusiastically, or should we be pulling the plug on this process or adjusting it? Right.
Wow.
The consultant is not going to be happy with me, but I'm not concerned about that, because if they're not doing the right thing, right?
No, that's a great lesson in there of, right, how many of us desperately, well, those I think that are smart pay to have someone smarter than them to go do the thing that they're not great at. That's great. But it's not a life raft. It's not always the parachute. It's not always the greatest thing. And again, I know this from my own experience and my own skin knees of just saying, hey, all right, I got something to finally take care of it. Let me go focus over here on something else.
Yeah.
Big mistake. 6 months later, you come back and like, well, I just pissed that down the drain.
What happened to all the furniture in my house? Where to go? Right? I made that mistake. Actually, I just had a client that was out in California. He's like an HVAC company, right? And he's like, hey, we sold these 7 jobs. I'm like, let's look at the numbers. And he goes, yeah, we brought in this money and this is what we spent on marketing. And he goes, so we made this amount of money. I said, no, you've lost money. He goes, well, what do you mean? I like, you're not calculating in the credit card fees. You're not in the transportation. How much is fuel in California? He goes, $6 a gallon. I'm like, okay, so how many miles are you driving to the average job? Yeah. What is it costing you in labor? What is it? Are you paying sales commission on this? Right. All this stuff isn't factored in. Then I said to him, I got some bad news. Those 7 jobs you just did, you lost $245 a job. But wait, there's more, because you're paying out a marketing company to run this traffic for you that you're only figuring the traffic cost. They're getting $4,200 a month to run that traffic. So let's back that into your 7. And now you're losing almost $900 a job.
Right.
And he was like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. So it's like, okay, now think about this, John, if he just handed it off to that marketing company, they're reporting numbers to him and he's like, oh gosh, okay, yeah. Right. But in the same time, he's losing $900 a job. So you go do 100 of those and you find out, geez, my $1 million bank account's down to $100,000. Right. Yeah. He would have recognized this before that, but it would have taken months for him to probably really get that point. Absolutely. So there's $250,000 gone.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, Doug, I know that everyone listening we could go for hours getting life lessons, many, many of them like that. But we do have to wrap this up for your sake. Everyone. So I do like to end with, and you've already thrown a lot out here, so you can go ditto on this. But I like to end with the biggest mistake or a largest mistake, failure, whatever that you've made that others could benefit from. And
oh gosh, there's so many. The biggest mistake. Actually, this is in my personal life, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made. Actually not trusting my own instinct. Thinking someone else knew better than I did, or not trusting because in the way I grew up in an environment which was kind of surrounded with you're good, but you're never going to be good enough. So, Sure. But if I had trusted my gut instinct and then validated it, that's right, folks, validated it. I'll give you an example. One time I was down in Florida. Oh, no, this is even a better example. That one was a small one compared to this. A friend of mine calls me and says, hey, the downturn of the economic thing has caused, she's a realtor, and she's like, I have 270 condominiums on the lake at Lake Winnipesaukee here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And she said, you can have any of them for $35,000.
Oof.
And my first gut instinct was like, call some friends, get some investors, and buy them all.
Right.
Right. But then I started listening to people talk about this and the economy. And I talked to a few people and like, nah, what do you want condos for? You're going to have to toilets and, and maintain this and that and this. Well, anyways, long story short, those condos today are about $800,000 a piece.
Yes. Yep.
And so if I had to just listen to my inner gut saying, yeah, go forward with this and validating it and got investment money. Think about that. I don't even know what that is, John, but if we ran the numbers, this will probably make me
That's a lot.
Right? $800,000 times 270, I think it was 272 condos. Yeah. Let's say I only ended up with 15% of that because I gave the investors everything that they asked for. What is that number? $32,640,000.
That's it?
That's it, right?
No, I mean, you know what? And that is, certainly with some of your experience, that gut means a lot, right?
It does. But you do want to validate it, though, right?
Yeah.
You can tell you what to do. And then when you validate it, you got to, bet on yourself sometimes. And quite frankly, what was I betting on? I was using everybody else's money. I would have just made $32 million over time, right? So
well,
so that would be my biggest. I think my biggest. I've done that 4 or 5 times in real estate alone.
Well, and I think for me, again, my own self-experience there is the people I'm asking and talking to, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They're scared to make it. That's why. Yeah. And so they're the ones that are talking about you. Versus if you talk to someone that knows what they're talking about and knows real estate, they probably have been like, okay, you said something, so I'll follow along with you, but I'll go do this myself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, someone did, and it wasn't me. So
right. Well, awesome. Well, Doug, again, this was a riot. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. How do people? Well, why don't you do this? Who is best suited to come looking for your services, and then how do they find you?
Anyone who has a business that wants to grow it, find the hidden revenue, find the hidden margins, your open game. We traditionally go after larger companies of 10 million and up, only because we can find millions that way.
Those numbers get bigger.
But we've been working with a lot of sub $1 million companies lately. We're finding ways of helping them. So anyone who wants to reach out, just reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com is my email. My direct phone line is 832-549-4836. Please no spam text. And my LinkedIn is Doug Brown 123. If you want to know more about me, just type in Doug C. Brown revenue growth. I'll be everywhere.
Awesome.
So thank you, John.
That. And I appreciate the courage to put your phone number out there. That's great.
No, I do want to help people. So
awesome. Well, everyone, please utilize that service and check in with Doug. He's got plenty to offer. And again, I'm going to sit back and think through a lot of the lessons you just kind of made me think about. So with that, we're going to call it this.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.